had to sit here for 2 hours just to stop him saying stupid shit. And you say, I'm exhausted with him. There's then a gap for an hour. And it may be that there was then a press conference because you then forward a tweet about someone who perhaps was watching that press conference saying that they were confused by what Boris Johnson has said at it. And you say, as your message, no words. And then Mr. Cummings says, what did I say? It's only a matter of time before his babbling exposes the fact he doesn't know what to say. Now, the first thing to ask you, Mr. Cain, I mean, I think it's apparent from what you've already said that Dominic Cummings was someone you'd worked with for some time. You clearly had a close relationship with him. Was this just chatter? Was this just banter, if you like? Were you just agreeing with him because he was your friend? Or did you actually mean that you were exhausted with the Prime Minister and that you were despairing, if you like, of what he was doing and saying?
I think anyone that's worked with the Prime Minister for a period of time will become exhausted with him sometimes. He can be quite a challenging character to work with just because he will oscillate, he will take a decision from the last person in the room. I think that's pretty well documented in terms of his style of operating, and it is rather exhausting from time to time.
You made the point in your statement, and you've made it again today, Mr. Cain, that if one is in the position of the Prime Minister and considering such a profound decision as ordering a lockdown, it's perfectly appropriate to weigh that decision carefully and to think about all of the negative consequences that will follow. But that's not what you're describing here. What we're seeing here in that critical period is someone who simply can't make up their mind and with whom two of his closest advisors are exhausted.
I mean, I think that's correct. I think there is a difference between weighing up the evidence and looking for challenge on policy issues and being sure that we are making the right decision. I think issues like if I remember correctly, the tweet there from Steve Swinford was regarding the press conference where I think he announced that we were going to turn the tide within 12 weeks, which we were frustrated by because I think the whole point of the suppression strategy, Chris and Patrick had been very clear that the suppression strategy would be a long-term endeavour. We were looking at, probably a year where we were going to have to do pretty hard measures, alleviate them a little bit, go back into hard measures again to keep control of the virus until, we were in a situation where a vaccine or another method came online, testing that would allow us a route out. But we all knew it was a long-term challenge. And I think from a communications point of view, the Prime Minister indicating that we basically could be finished with COVID in 12 weeks was unhelpful because it set a very unrealistic sort of expectation of where the nation needed to be, because it's all about compliance at this point and being honest and transparent with the public about what to expect and how to expect it.
Mr. Cain, you say it was unhelpful. One might think that was quite a well-chosen word from the communications world.
So that is Lee Cain giving evidence to the COVID inquiry. He was one of Boris Johnson's communications.
He was. He worked with him on vote leave during the referendum, and they got together when he was Foreign Secretary, and he went into number 10 with him. Have to remind people, of course, though, that Lee Cain was fired by Boris Johnson, as was Dominic Cummings. Lee Cain went out the back door, a little bit of humility. Dominic Cummings went out the front door with a box, holding a box, which I wrote at the time, will we have all sorts of smoking gun emails, tweets, WhatsApp messages, which he will unleash against Boris Johnson.
So are you suggesting that bitterness will influence what they say at this COVID inquiry?
I'm not suggesting they are bitter and twisted in any shape or form, but it does seem, particularly with Dominic Cummings, he has been on a one-man campaign to destroy Boris Johnson's reputation ever since he left Number 10.
Okay.
But I also concede and accept that Boris Johnson, I've known him for 25, 30 years, is a shambles.
Well, Lee Cain said there, Boris Johnson was quite a challenging character to work with,
Yes.
which could be a bit of an understatement.
Well, I worked
he
with him at the Daily-
oscillates, he said.
I worked with him when he was a columnist on the Daily Telegraph. Trust me, his copy was always late, and it was never what he said he was going to write about, always beautifully written, but never what you expected. You despaired with the call came.
Despair greatly, though, when he's got the whole nation in his hands and he's oscillating to whatever the last person in the room said.
Sure.
I mean, I'm disgusted by this COVID inquiry. I'm sickened by it. The fact that we had to push to get children included in it, the damage done to children, which as a mother I'm seeing constantly, daily, their mental health, the way they fell behind everything. This COVID inquiry is a joke, and this kind of conversations that they're having, dealing backwards and forwards about Boris, just get to the grip of it and let's get some proper answers out of it. It's a waste of our taxpayers' money unless they're going to do a proper job.
And it's going to take, Nichi, years and years and years. Probably 2027. We're now in 2023.
This is the problem with these kinds of inquiries. They happen so far after the fact that actually the public has moved on with what's concerning them in the news. They might still be frustrated and upset and hurt.
I'm not sure they've moved on, particularly not if you've been affected as thousands of people were. I actually think it's incredibly important and is part of the grieving process, if you like, and still coming to terms with everything that happened, because it is still raw for so many people.
But
so
of course. I mean, it is.
Can I say that one of the things that they're not taking on enough for me, because I didn't lose anyone from the virus COVID. I lost 3 people from lockdown. So that, for me, is not being identified here in this inquiry at all. You know, they're just looking at some people. And that's, for me, it's not enough. You know, they look at them flippantly, deciding, shall we lock down? Shall we not lock down? Oh, shall we? I don't know. One day we will, one day we will. Not taking on all the tsunami of damage that will be done.
Well, I think they've heard this morning that they realised, the inquiry's heard that it was realised lockdown was necessary 10 days before it actually happened.
Yeah, but actually there's still an argument to have, which I hope the inquiry is going to show up, Nichi, as to whether it was necessary to lock us down.
Exactly.
And was it necessary for people to wear masks, or was it just paying lip service to make it look like they were doing something positive?
Well, what is actually really valuable about this stage of the inquiry is shedding light on the character of Boris Johnson and his vacillation, because he wasn't up to the job. He hasn't been up to the job being Prime Minister for a long time. He wasn't in the first place. You know, he's a serial liar. He's lied to us. He's lied to the Queen. He's, prorogued Parliament. And people that have worked with him know that he's a Chancellor. You know, it's just his character. It doesn't mean that he's not likeable in a way, because, he has got qualities that speak to people. But the point is, he was so out of his depth. And the fact that he had so much pre-information which he disregarded. He didn't pay attention to what was coming out from China, what was coming out from Asia. So, and he was weak in that regard.
Hold that thought.
Yes.